Hi, welcome to the MechWorks PDM Automatic Numbering webinar. My name is Glenn and I will be your presenter today. Just a little bit about MechWorks. MechWorks is a PDM company with customers worldwide. We have been providing PDM since 1998. PDM is our total focus, allowing us to provide the best-in-class PDM. MechWorks allows for users to only enter data once, providing everyone with the needed data without any retyping. Along those lines, the auto numbering utility provides for users to need only select the numbering schema for their document, and the number and description is automatically assigned, populating the record card and the drawing template. So what are we going to look at today? Today we're going to create a new part and its drawing and save it. We will look at the configurable numbering formats. We'll look at the title blocks in the drawings on how they inherit the properties from the part. We'll look at the category wizard and the category fields. We'll create a standard part. We'll create a part with a temporary number. We'll use the rename tool. We'll look at using the duplication wizard for renaming many parts. We'll look at creating and saving configurations. And then we'll finally look at the auto numbering utility administration. So let's now go to our CAD system. And today we're going to be using the MechWorks PDM seamlessly integrated with SolidWorks. The auto numbering utility works the same in all the CAD systems that we are integrated with. So the first thing we're going to do here is we will create a new part. So the user is going to go in here, select new, and create a part just like they always do. And we're going to do something very simple. There we go. Give it some depth. There. So now the user's created their part. And so now what they need to do is to save this part. And they would save it just like they would normally save it. Select Save. This is going to present the user with the auto numbering form. This auto numbering form can have as many different formats on here as you would need. Each one of these formats represents an auto numbering or a numbering system or criteria. And as an organization, you would create these different numbering formats. So you might just have one, you might have many, but each one you would create to match the numbering schema that you need for your organization. For instance, if we select this, which is customer 789, this down here is showing the user the actual numbering schema that is being used for that part. Just the same if we select another one, it will show a different numbering schema. As I said, you can have as many of these different numbering schemas and create whichever numbering schema that you need to and have them represented on this auto numbering form. Now, for this part we just created, the user is going to select customer 789. It's going to give it this numbering system. So we'll select OK. So what it's presenting here to the user now is that it gave it the ID number following the numbering schema for the one that we selected, and the next sequential number that we need to have, but it's given the user, or it's assigned the user the ability to actually key in or enter whichever description they want to do it. So we'll key in here hex nut. Let's make that capital so we can see it. There we go. And now the user would select OK. They would then be presented with the record card. The record card now has inherited that ID number, the part number, and the description entered by the user. Select OK. So now this part has been saved. Let's just move it over a bit so we can see there. And is a record inside of the MechWorks PDM. So now, say the user wants to create the drawing for this part. Same thing, go to drawing, make a drawing from the part. The user would select the template that they use. In this case, we're going to select this one that has been configured to have the properties in the areas for the users on this system. So we select OK. So here's our template, and we'll drop in a part. And now, or the view. So now we're going to save this, select save. When the user saves this drawing, here's its record card, it inherits the ID from the part, and it inherits the description from the part. Our drawings are automatically linked to their part or to their assembly. And we'll select OK. So now we've created the part and its drawing. And the drawing template not only inherited the description and the ID, it inherited who created this document, when they created the document. It's starting to build the revision table. So as this part is life cycled, it will enter automatically the relevant information in the revision table. Let's go back to our part. So here's the very first part that we created. So now we're going to create some new parts. And rather than going through and recreating geometry each time, I'm going to go to the MechWorks PDM ribbon, and I'm going to use Save As. And when the user uses Save As, it will create a new part based on this design. So let's select Save As. So then the user again is presented with the auto numbering form. This time we'll select customer 998. Select OK. This time you'll notice it went straight into the record card. The user had not been assigned the ability to change either the description or the ID at this time. So that was the way that format, that numbering criteria for that format was configured for the users. Let's select OK. So that will go ahead and create the new part with the new description and part number. There we go. New part number, new description. So let's create another new one. And what basically we're going to go through these different formats, different numbering criteria that have been configured for this system, just to give you a clearer picture of exactly how you can configure these formats or whichever number of formats that you want for your organization. So this time we're going to select, or the user is going to select with categories. Let's select that and select OK. Now this time the user gets presented with the Save Wizard or Category Wizard. This is a way to define categories for your parts. What you see on the screen is just generic, and it is fully configurable to meet the type of categories that you want to create, whatever you need to name them, or whatever kind of icon or image you want to represent each individual category. For this, the user is going to select machined. and the user created a nut, and it's a hex. And we'll select OK. So again, the user was not given the opportunity or the ability to enter any differences. They couldn't enter their own description or change the ID. That was the way this format has been configured. And part of the reason for doing that is when one is using the categories, it's a good idea then that the categories then become the description. For instance, description, machine, nut, hex. So when a user is looking for any kind of legacy part or legacy document, it's a lot easier to find those documents if everybody follows the same criteria for descriptions. I mean, if you left everybody to do it themselves, this could be hex machine nut, it could be nut machined hex. This way, everybody follows the same standard and it's a lot easier to find your parts. Let's select OK. So now that's going to create our new part again. And it's going to have the ID and the description that the administrator wants the user to use. So let's create another part. Now this time, what we're going to do is we're going to create a standard part. Within your organization, you probably have standard parts that nobody should be doing any life cycling on. They are a standard part. You use it as it is. So obviously, the best thing to do is have their own numbering criteria for standard parts. So let's go ahead and we'll use Save As to create the new part. And this time the user is going to select standard parts, which is going to give it the numbering criteria for the standard parts on this system. It can be whatever you need to have on yours. Select OK. And then in here, this time the user has been assigned that ID to show this a standard part, and they have been assigned the ability to put in a description which is different than just the standard part ID if they want to. So this key will enter hex nut. Select OK. So now that will save that, create the record cards, that ID, the description that the user entered, select OK, and it will create and save that standard part. There we go. Now, one of the things that we use in the MechWorks PDM is visual cues. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about visual cues. They are covered in one of the other webinars. But with a visual cue, it is a way for all the users, when they look at a document, they get information presented to them from that visual cue. In this case, this bolt is showing that this part is a standard part. It should not be life cycled. Use it as it is. Okay, let's create one last part here. Here we go, Save As. So we're going to create this new part. Now this part, we're going to give it a temporary number. Many times you have users that create a part and you don't know what numbering criteria you need to have for that part. You don't know what its final part number is going to be. So with this format that was created, the user could go in here and select temp number. Select OK. And this provides for the user to put in whatever temp number they want to put in there. So they could say temp 52, whatever. And they can put in whatever description they want to put in here. Nut. Select OK. So then that will save this part with its temporary ID or temporary part number. There. And it created that for you. So I have used several different templates here to create these different parts. And let's close this off. There we go. I don't really need to save because we already did. So let's go to the MechWorks browser. And I'm not going to go into any details on the MechWorks browser today because it's covered in other webinars. Obviously, the easiest way to explain it is that we have the different projects, and your documents are obviously in the different projects based on however you want to separate or distinguish your different documents, in whether they're projects for a product or for I don't know, customer, whatever. It just sort of gives you a way to split up those individual documents. Just remember there's just one physical file, even though it may be used in lots of different places. So this here is the very first document that we created. And obviously when a user selects the document, it's going to give them the image of it. And if we go to the document grid over here, you know, it will provide other information that the user might need to know, what revisions, whether it has attachments, whatever. So this is the first part that we created, or the user created, where it assigned the number and the user was allowed to enter their own description. Here's that standard part where the user was allowed to enter the description. We have the other parts in here. Here's the where are we? Here we go. Here's the part we created with the category wizard, where it assigned the number and the description, and the user wasn't at that stage allowed to change the description. Now, obviously, each user could be allowed at some time to be able to change that description as needed. So, for instance, you know, they could call this whatever, or they could go and reclassify it. So instead of being nut, they could leave that nut and perhaps a different type of nut. It just allows the user to go in and reclassify if they need to. Here we go, machined, bolt, anchor, hit OK. So, you know, if you want to allow the users to reclassify and put in new descriptions, they can. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll go down here to the auto numbering tools in the shortcut menu, and we have the format options there. This is an administrative tool, and this tool allows the administrator to define those different formats with the different numbering criteria as and when they need them. Let's open that up. So this is where the administrator would define the different formats that they would need. So remember, you could have just one format. If you didn't want a format anymore, the administrator could delete it and only just have these 5. Or they might just have 1, or you could have 20, whichever number of formats and numbering schemas that you need, you can have. Let's create a new one. Select new, give it a name. We'll give it a name of, I don't know, today, 2019. Select OK. So now it has a new name. It's been created. There it is. So now the administrator would define clearly the numbering schema and what and how the users would use this numbering schema. For instance, for the auto numbering, the actual numbering schema, perhaps you have 12-534 whatever -01. As the administrator enters this information, down below here is going to show the administrator exactly what that numbering format is going to look like. And right now this is being saved in the wrong path. So as you may know, MechWorks PDM is not a rigid, restricted vault that mangles and encrypts the file name. You can define where you want these files to be saved on your server. We're going to save it there. Hit OK. So now you notice it's showing the users and everybody that any of the parts that are saved off with this numbering criteria will be saved in the repository, and it will follow this numbering schema. You'll notice in some of these different formats, some users were allowed to change the description, allow change. Some were allowed to change the number and the description, so they could be both. In here is where you define what the users are allowed to enter as they create those new parts. We're not going to allow any. And this is where you would select so that you could have the configurations, the categories or not have categories. Over here is for the configurations, how you define the actual numbering of your configurations, whether it has a unique ID or you do a prefix or a suffix, exactly how you want to handle them. So with this tool, the administrator can define the numbering schemas that you need for your organization. Let's apply those changes and save them. And we'll close this off. So now let's go back and we'll start off with this part again, and we'll do a save as to create a new part. You'll notice that the auto numbering form has that new format in here that is based on the numbering criteria that we just created as an administrator. So the user selects OK, goes to the category wizard. So we can go in here and create whichever we need in here. And here's the record card. Select OK. And there we go. So we just created a new auto numbering format, and you can see how easy it is for, as an organization, you can create your own automatic numbering. Let's close this. Okay, and we'll go back to the MechWorks browser. So now let's take a look at the part that we created with the temporary number. So now the users many times would have, their own, put in those temporary numbers, and at some time, whether it's the temporary number or whichever kind of number that you may have, you may need to rename that number. It's simple. Select the document and you go down to the rename, select rename. It's going to give you the automatic numbering form. You select your numbering schema that you want that document to have. Select OK. In this case, we're going to use the categories, and this time we'll call it a bolt and a carriage. Select OK. Then that will present this form, which will say, hey, you really want to do this? The user selects yes, and that'll go ahead and renumber and rename this document for you. Now, obviously, it doesn't only have to be a CAD part. If you want to rename, say, an Excel file or a Word file or a PDF file, for instance, this part here, I just want to change the ID number on here. Just the same, go to the rename, select rename, gives you the format. So you could have a special format in here just for PDFs, or you could have a special format for just generic parts, whichever you need to have. We'll just pick any one of these. Pick this one. Hang on, what do we have here? I don't remember what's in here. Let's do one with categories because we know that's a different number. Select OK, go through here, select what you need, select OK, and it will ask, do you want to change from the ID number of 998, 19, blah, to this? Select yes. And then that will change that for the user. So you can rename any type of document. So now, there are times when you want to rename a whole bunch of parts all at one time. You have an assembly, like, let's go down to this project. So the project a user is working in is defined by this red arrow. And in here, we have an assembly. This assembly has a customer number of 222, then the type of whatever document it is. And we have a bunch of temporary parts in numbers, IDs in here. So you want to rename all those to have the 222 on it. Now you could go through and do them one at a time, or you could use the wizard tool of assembly duplication and change the numbers of these parts all in one go. Let's do this. So you select the parts that you want to have the new numbers on. We got quite a few here. There we go. I think we have them all. So these are all the parts the user wants to give a new part number or ID number to. Select the assembly duplication wizard. Now I'm not going to go into any detail on the assembly duplication because that is covered in another webinar and I don't want to waste time on covering an area we don't need to today. But the assembly duplication wizard generally is used to take an existing assembly and create a new one from that existing, where you define all the new part numbers that that assembly would need. Well, rather than actually creating a new assembly, what we want to do is take the assembly that we have, which is this assembly, and we want to take these parts and just rename them. We don't want to make a copy of them. We want to rename them. So we select rename. And then the user can go in here and define what they want to do. So we want to go from temp and we want to go to 222. Now, this is one way of renaming them. You could have it so you rename them and you put a prefix in front of it. So you could have put the 222 in front of it, or you could use, you could create a custom script, or you could use the automatic numbering formats. It's really up to you as an organization exactly how you want to do it. This way, it's given the users total freedom and exactly the numbering that they want to rename those parts to. So if we hit simulate over here, it is going to list all of those documents, those parts that we want to renumber, starting with 222. Now, if you needed to, a user could go in here and say, this one is going to be 1122, and this one needs to be 223. So you could, each one of these could get a new individual number through this method and renumber all of these at one go. But we're going to keep it at the 222. So we just reset that to the 222. There we go. And now we're going to say, okay, rename all those documents in one go for me. So MechWorks PDM is going to look at those documents and rename them the way the user wants them to be renamed. Let's hit exit. And we'll refresh that. You can see that now they all have the 222 in front of them instead of temp. Okay, so let's go back to this doc part I think we want. Where are we? No, we want this one. So let's go back to this project. And in this project, we have some configuration files. We have a configuration file with 1, 2, 3 configs to it. And say a user wants to create a new config and how you actually number that and handle the creation of that new configuration file. So we're going to go in here and we're going to open this up. There we go. So what am I doing here? Let's go back. I must have not told it to open it. Here we go. And we're going to open up this configuration file. And you can see here that it has 3 configurations. 1, 2, 3. So now the user wants to create a 4th configuration. It's pretty simple. Go add configuration, key in or enter the configuration name. So in this case, it's going to be number 4 or 04. Select OK. And you'll notice it's letting the user know that by moving forward, it's going to add this configuration to the database. We'll select yes. So now 4 has been created and it's in the database. And we could go in here and change this. We wanted to. Let's go, let's see. Whatever. And we'll just, this configuration that. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the configurations because there is a separate webinar just on configurations. But you can see how we quickly went in there and we created this new configuration. And based on the criteria that was set for the numbering of this configuration, it knew how I want the numbering to go. It's going to be 66173-27-04. This one's 01, 02, 03. It knows exactly what we want for the user on the system that you're using. Now, there are times when you create a configuration that you don't want a record for, and we allow for that. So we just add another configuration real quick, and we'll say no record, and that will create this configuration for the users. So if we go between the different ones, we have this one. Because there could be times when you want to create a configuration, but you don't want a record for it. Perhaps it's showing how sheet metal is folded or whatever. But because of the way MechWorks has been configured for the users, it knows what kind of numbering you want to have on it, whether you want to have a record for that configuration or not have a record for that configuration. And if we go back to the MechWorks browser, just save that, there we go. And we go, we'll see now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 configurations, and we do not show that no record because we didn't want a record of it. It still exists in the SolidWorks file, but it's not actually, doesn't have a record. And if we go to this first one here, we go to the edit revision, go to configuration revision, you see that it also lists the 4 configurations that exist in there. Also, you can control the revision that the a whole config file is at, and also you can have a sub revision which can show perhaps the last time this individual configuration, at what revision that was last modified. As I said, I'm not going to go into any real details on the configs because this is an auto numbering webinar. Okay, so I think we showed everything we want to do here. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. And the next thing I want to talk about is our tech support. PDM is all we do. It's our total focus. Our technical support staff have years of experience with PDM. They attend training on the MechWorks PDM. They have training on the Microsoft. They have training on the Microsoft SQL, the .NET, Microsoft operating systems. They get training on all of the CAD systems that we're integrated with, and also training on the Microsoft Office products. We have tech support offices across the United States. They cover several different time zones. We are here ready to provide help if or when you need it. We look at all our customers, whether the smallest or the largest, as our PDM partners. We want to share our 16 years plus of PDM knowledge and pass that on to all of our customers. It makes your life easier. We're going to pass that information on to you. Because obviously our clear goal is to accelerate your design cycle, give you that secure environment that will promote design integrity and help you become totally successful with your document management needs. So what do we look at today? Today, we created a part with this drawing, and we used the automatic numbering utility to number that part. We created a variety of different parts there. We created a standard part, a temporary number part, parts with the category wizard, and parts without categories. We looked at how easy it is to create your own numbering criteria formats. Remember, you can have just the one numbering format, or you could have multiple numbering formats. It's whatever you need in your organization. We looked at how easy it is to rename a document, whether it's a CAD file or whatever kind of document you have inside of MechWorks PDM. It's easy to rename it. We looked at numbering and renaming an assembly or the parts in the assembly all at one go. We looked at the automatic links between a document and its categories and populating the title block of the automatically linked drawing to its part or to its assembly. We looked at how you create new configurations, how you number them, how you can have some configurations registered in the database and some of them are just there, not registered, but they're available to the users to see that information. If you have any questions, please let us know. We would welcome the opportunity to provide you a full product demonstration, cover just the areas of you that are important to your organization, little areas of the MechWorks PDM that you just want to see. Can you just show us configurations? We are willing to do the webinars and show you whatever you need to see as far as a demonstration. All you need to do is give us a call at 1-800-573-6183. You could email us at info@na-ips.com. You can download one of these webinars, or you can go through all the different webinars and you can look at them. You can go to our webpage, go to the MechWorks webpage. We're here to help you make the best decision for yourself as far as a PDM. So again, thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thanks again. Bye.